into a very strange period of his life. Was that just it?
It was saying it is successful reconnection.
Fantastic.
What a shit show.
So unprofessional.
I hate us.
He gets insomnia. He doesn't. His whole life is like just a string of just mediocrity, right? He has his apartment where he obsesses over the things that he owns, hoping that they'll complete him, but they never do. And eventually he realizes that he can cure his insomnia by going to support groups.
Mm-hmm.
While at these support groups, though, he eventually sees another person there, a woman named Marla, who is doing the same thing he is doing. She's a tourist, and he confronts her about it. But she also kind of confronts him about it, right? They end up splitting up the support groups. They share different She says, groups. Like, I'll go on Monday, Thursday, and Sunday. And,
yep.
And, so they don't see each other anymore. Then, every man is on an airplane, and he meets this other guy, Tyler Durden, who's just like there's an instant connection. They talk to each other, and it feels like they're both listening. That's one of the things that they mention in the movie, right? Like, people who don't talk to each other, they're just waiting for their turn to speak.
Yep.
Because they're you're not listening, and that's a very common experience I've found. But with him and Tyler, there's like a connection. Then every man's apartment gets blown up because the pilot light went out, and whatever the explanation is, the like refrigerator kicks on.
Yep.
He goes out with Tyler Durden, who runs a soap company. And Tyler Durden ends up saying, come on, just come live in my house. Or just ask me. Just be forward about this. Like,
yep.
Have this moment. Ask me. And they go live together in the Paper Street Company headquarters, which is this dilapidated-ass house. And from this house, they end up launching Fight Club, which is at first, one place where people go to... Men specifically go to fight each other at night in a dank bar basement, but eventually grows into something much larger than that. And Fight Club is kind of the story of the growth of Fight Club. It's the story of the growth of Everyman and Tyler's relationship. It's the story of their relationship with Marla as well. And it's ultimately the story of like what Fight Club tells us about the world in which it is situated. I think it is a good movie. I don't love it, but I love to look at it. I love to watch it. Not because it's a very well-made movie, obviously, but I think that what it's trying to say about the world is so strange and off-putting, but also so deeply true in so many ways that I find this movie captivating. What did you think of this film, Curtis?
I think it's okay. Ben's gonna kill me today.
It's fucking Road Warrior all over again.
It is very much Road Warrior, and in that I just don't see the appeal.
I feel like I just explained the appeal,
but it just does nothing for me. I was hoping I had this experience in high school where I watched it, and I watched people around me be fascinated with it, and as I mentioned to you earlier, try to start up some shitty Fight Club.
Of course. Well, yeah, because that's what you do when you're a young man.
Right.
It's like, this movie speaks to young men in a way that almost no other movie does.
Right.
And I think that's important, and I think that's worth investigating. Because it's young men are people too, right? You need young men to be happy. Not happy, but you need young men to be able to find meaning in their lives for society to continue to function. We can't just discard them, which I think many people would like to do. Is like take a look at the shitlords online and just say like, well, dump them in the shitter, fuck those guys. But you can't you can't do that. I did that for a long time, and then I started actually talking to them and listening to them. And a lot of those guys are people who would follow Tyler Durden. They're so desperate for meaning in their lives that the first person who comes around and says like, you are not important, you are not a special snowflake. What does he say? He says, you are the all-seeing, all-dancing crap of the world. You are all part of the same big compost heap. And that's religious language, right? That's an almost theological statement of oneness, but it's couched in this disgust sensitivity, right?
Do you think that's a religious statement of oneness?
The idea of everybody being part of one big pile? Yes. The idea, yes. We are all part of one big compost heap, I think, is a very deliberate nod towards religious language. That is one of the things that's so important about Christianity, is that it says the person who has more money than you is not better than you, because you all have the same spark of divinity inside of you. You are all part of the same group. You are all part, not just the group of Christians, but you are all human beings. And being a human being gives you inherent value that is more. It is not just valuable. It is more valuable than all the money in the world. That is one of the important pieces of Christianity that I think we're losing in the modern day, as people become more and more identified by the things they own and by the amount of money that they have. Sorry, I interrupted what you were saying about high school.
I don't see the value in the. I don't know. I don't see the connection to the compost heap. I just see
the idea of being part of one larger whole.
That's worthless.
Compost heap is not worthless.
It is if you're compost.
A compost heap is valuable. A compost heap is nutrients. A compost heap is a very important part of the life cycle.
But if everything is the compost, what is it giving nutrients to?
What do you mean? Not everything is the compost.
Didn't he say everything is all part of the... He said
everybody. All of you in Project Mayhem are part of the same big compost heap. You're the all singing, all dancing crap of the world. I hope I'm getting that line right, because if I'm not, that's a little embarrassing. But again, I'm sorry I interrupted you with my whole spiel. I just care very deeply about this movie.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, I don't. And I was bummed out to have the same experience when I watched it. Yeah, it
bums me out too.
Last night, 10 years later. I don't... It's not a bad movie. I didn't hate watching it. It was... I find... I don't know. I get a lot of the same vibes as... This is maybe my one shot. I get a lot of the same vibes as I did from Boondock Saints.
That's your one.
And
I hope you enjoyed it. Folks at home, you're not going to hear the words Boondock Saints again.
And I can't watch...
No, I'm joking. If you want to reference Boondock Saints and explaining it, go ahead.
And I get the same... When we talked about Boondock Saints, I kind of talked about how I enjoy that movie, but I don't like that character of the... Just like the good-natured, just like white dude, but like... Don't get in his face. Don't cause any trouble, because then you're in trouble.
That's not at all what I take from Fight Club. In fact, one of the things that happens in Fight Club is he tells them to go out, get into a fight, and then lose the fight. So in a way, it seems to be undercutting that.
Well, but I think one of the strongest parts of Boondock Saints is that...
He allows Lou to beat him up in the bar basement. I'm really not seeing the connection.
Because it's about... Boondock Saints is this element of chaotic good characters. They're people that do bad things, but the end result is good. They are those anti-heroes.
And it really is not that simple. That's a fucking D&D. Like you can't reduce characters in a complex piece of fiction.
I will reduce them. And I say that...
But then you're distorting the text when you do that.
In Boondock Saints... They kill people, which is bad, but they're killing bad people, which makes the world a better place.
That's what Troy Duffy would like you to
believe. And I think
that
that is a chaotic good character archetype. Doing something bad because it means the world is a better place because of it.
But they then just go on to like kill people that just piss them off for some reason, right?
They're still bad people, though. Right? I mean, maybe not to you.
Some would argue, Kant would argue that that the reason you have for doing something changes the quality of the act itself.
He would also argue that if everybody behaved in the same way that the people they are killing do, the world would be an awful place.
Kant would argue that?
Isn't that one of his things?
I don't know, actually.
Oh, one of his things is every time you do an action, you should ask yourself, what would it be like if everybody did what I'm about to do? And everybody should base their actions off of what it would be like if everybody did what you want to do.
Anyway.
I
do see a good comparison between Fight Club and Boondock Saints, and I was hasty in discarding that, because I think that Boondock Saints also spoke to a lot of young men. However, I think that Fight Club is the thinking man's Boondock Saints.
Thinking man's. I don't
know. Not thinking very hard.
Okay, all
not
right.
thinking very hard, but you have to be. It's like Boondock Saints is the bargain basement level. Then Fight Club is like one. Fight Club is one step above that. Boondock Saints is for people who watched Fight Club and didn't get the ending, right?
I think they both appeal to like the same common denominator, but I can say that there is probably more artistic value in Fight Club than in Boondock Saints. So, and I don't
think that they appeal to the same common denominator, though. I think that unless you're going to say that the same common denominator is disaffected young men. Yeah. I think that's what unites them. And I think
you don't think the same dudes that wanted to start a Fight Club in my high school aren't the same dudes in my high school that loved Boondock Saints?
I don't know, man. Everybody watches movies, and everybody ought to be able to watch movies. Even trash people like them. I think that, there was something going on in the late 90s, which is what this series is about, that was making young, disaffected men sometimes undertake, like, radical...
Yeah. And that's something
radical actions that fascinates me. And Boondock Saints and Fight Club both spoke to those young men for some reason.
And I think that is something that I'm very excited to talk about. As much as I didn't care about Fight Club, I think it fits in perfectly with Office Space, and we'll be talking. You would probably disagree, but I think it fits in very well with the Boondock Saints, which is also another film from 1999. So I'm more interested in the context of 1999 and why this seemed to be such a theme.
Yeah, why was this touching such a nerve? Well, let's get Boondock Saints out of the way first, because I think that what Troy Duffy would say is that there was crime. That crime was the reason why people were feeling disaffected. People saw crimes going on, and they felt like they should be doing something, or somebody should be doing something, and yet nobody was. Hence, Boondock Saints. And I think that's a bad answer. I think it's a racist answer also, but that's besides the point. Fight Club is a little more complicated, because Fight Club, Tyler Durden's thesis in Fight Club is that man has become, specifically men, have become disconnected from that which makes them men. They become disconnected from the primal. What is it that disconnects them from the primal man? Well, what do you think it is? What do you think Tyler would say it is?
I would like to point out, though, that there is that part in Boondock Saints where they go on this rant about men and what it means to be men. Right?
What did they say it means to be men? How does that...
Where they talk about all the self-help bullshit and people... John Wayne he died with 5 pounds of bullshit in his colon or whatever, and saying that there's that whole rant about my feelings are none of your fucking business, and... That whole...
I don't remember that.
Yeah. So...
I'm sorry.
But... So, I don't know. Where were we going with that?
Right.
So, what does it mean to be a man?
What does Tyler Durden think is stopping men from being men?
I think that he thinks that men are pacified by things like boring office jobs, which work against the nature of what man should be doing, which is hunting, fighting, killing, surviving.
Seeing a piece of the world and seizing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's where that comes from. And people trade conveniences for their humanity.
And possessions.
Or their manliness.
They trade conveniences and possessions. But you disagree. There was something you disagreed with me about when I was talking about how all of a person's possessions make them weak, right? How a person's... The things that you own come to own you, and the things that you own come to steal and numb little pieces of your mind and of your senses.
I don't know. I don't remember.
Do you agree with that?
I don't know. I don't.
What do you think about what I just said? Because in Fight Club, that's a very important running theme. Like, Edward Norton has a very nice apartment full of very nice things, right? He's got it goes through the prices like a catalog at the beginning in that one great shot. But then that all gets blown up. He's devastated. He goes to live in a shithole.
Mm-hmm.
In the, what do they call it? A dilapidated shithole in the toxic waste part of town.
Yeah.
And yet he is no less happy. In fact, he actually seems happier and better balanced after all of his things that he thought defined who he was got taken away from him. What do you think of that?
I don't think I have an opinion about that.
How would you feel if all your things got taken away from you?
Sad, I guess. Yeah, sad.
Yeah.
Like,
Could you envision a situation in which you got rid of all your things?
yeah, sometimes.
Yeah? Do you ever want to? I want to.
No.
You never want to.
No.
You never think of how much simpler it would be if all you had to think about was like the 4 or 5 prized possessions that mean the most to you in the world. How much more care and love and attention you'd be able to dedicate to the people around you, and how much more care you would be able to dedicate to those few objects that are actually meaningful, to be able to build like a solid connection with them.
That is not a thought that I have ever had.
You never had it?
No, I think that I don't think losing all of my millions of possessions would strengthen my bond that I have with the ones that I care about.
You don't think so?
I don't.
Why not?
Because I care very much for them already.
You care much for well, yeah, but that's sapping you. You only have a certain amount that you can care about things.
Oh, that's not true.
That's physically... I'm pretty sure that's physically true.
But I mean, it is, but it not in that way. Like, it's not a measurable, like, you don't have like 20 points worth of love, and so if you give 5 things to my Ninja Turtle toys, there's 5 less things to give to other things. Like, you can only love things so much, but not by getting... That's like saying, like... yeah, like, I don't think that if I got rid of my Ninja Turtle toys, I'd love my wife that as much more as I loved my Ninja Turtle toys.
It's not it's not mathematic and systematized.
That's like in King of the Hill, when Dale gives advice to... when I think Bobby's girlfriend's mad at him, and he tells her to take the thing she loves the most and kill it, and then he'll be one thing higher. Like, that's what that makes me think of. Like, I don't think that getting rid of my things could improve my amount of love that I have for...
Okay, that's not exactly what I meant.
Okay.
I think what I mean is more that your attachments cause you to be pulled in many directions all at once. And your brain is not set up to be pulled in many directions all at once. There's a numbing effect that comes with it. And some people find it to be a pleasant numbing effect. But it is a numbing effect nonetheless. I think that at the beginning of the movie, what you see is the narrator numb. Mm-hmm. He's numb to everything. His life has completely ceased to have any natural rhythm to it whatsoever. It's just one gray line. He never cares very much about anything because he's being asked to care about too many things.
I don't think I have the same problem. So I don't relate to that, I guess.
But you didn't care about Fight Club.
No.
Okay. I'm not saying you have the same problem. I'm saying I'm saying that in a way we all have that same problem.
Sure.
In a consumer culture, we are... And in a consumer culture, after we have discarded the transcendent element of the human being, unless we replace it with something else that's personal, all we have is our identity as consumers. Hence why you see so much focus on identity these days. And on consumption. Check out the new Netflix series, right? Have you seen Stranger Things
When
yet?
the fuck is season 3 of Stranger Things coming out?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what Fight Club is railing against. And that's why I think that it's such an important prophetic work. Because it sees very clearly what's coming down the pike, and it's trying to warn us about it, you know?
See, I think I have a different opinion about that, I guess.
About what?
The what's coming down the pike. I think it already came down the pike, and what came down the pike was Columbine. I think that was maybe, and this is all speculation. Maybe I haven't really thought about this very much, but I think the workplace environment became what it was like post World War II, and at that point, maybe this is me just being crazy and maybe going too far back, but in post World War II, it was just factories. Everybody worked in factories, and you didn't have to have a whole lot of skills to work in a factory. They needed bodies. That's what factories needed.
You need a warm body to pull the levers.
You just got to pull the lever.
You need a hand to get the fingers chopped off of.
Until they started using computers to run the factories. And then you had to, developing computer skills was a marketable skill that made you a valuable worker. And I think it just became so, the idea of you not having value as a worker mixed with the effects of being on a computer constantly pushed us towards 1999, which was just, and I think these movies of us partying like it's 1999 are stoking those flames of what it meant to live in that society. And I think Columbine was that bubble bursting, and I think since Columbine we've taken as a society a big step back, and we've said, how do the things that we expose ourselves to affect our brain and psyche? And I think since the early 2000s and the new millennium, I think that we have reevaluated a lot of workspaces. I definitely think there are still like factory jobs or just shit jobs that don't care about you. But I think that on like a corporate level, which is where Tyler Durden worked, we've started focusing on just small things like vacation time and ergonomics and having company retreats.
So you think the problem is solved?
I don't think the problem is solved. I think the bubble burst, and I don't think it's this
disaffection,
this horrible,
the bubble of badness that was growing,
of just like the numbness of working. I think we've acknowledged that it's there, of being this Tyler Durden. We've realized through media and through living it that this is a real thing for people. People feel like this, and you're not alone. And I think we've stepped back and started to approach how to make this better. And I don't think that we've fixed it, but I think that it's not what's coming. I think it's getting better. That's kind of what I like to think optimistically. And then I think like Walmart doesn't give a fuck about you, and if you work for their company, and they're just doing as little as possible they would make you work on Christmas if people didn't freak out. They don't give a fuck about you or Christmas. So, yeah, that I think I like these movies that we've looked at because I think it shows that context of 1999, and I think Columbine was. I think these movies, I think they kind of were like prophetic of what was going to happen. And I think that Columbine...
They were drawn from the same culture.
Yeah.
And there's some fascinating, like, specific detail. Like, the central dyad of Fight Club is really similar to the central dyad of the Columbine shootings. And if you look at it in kind of an insensitive way, which is the only way I can look at it anymore because I'm so fucking... I delved so deep into that I've become removed from it.
And I think that, like, Office Space fits right in with these movies because you take these people and like one thing that these three movies have in common, which I'm in this instance, I'm including the Boondock Saints, is that you're not supposed to kill people, and you're not supposed to. You're supposed to go to work and do your job and not complain. That's both Fight Club and Office Space. And all three of these movies say... Boondock Saints is a shitty movie, so it doesn't work as well with that. But all three of these movies introduce, if you don't listen to what you're supposed to do, look how much better your life gets. And Troy Duffy's a fucking idiot, so he just thinks, oh, it's just sick. Like, that's just all there is to it. Oh, you just kill the bad people, and then you're working for God, so it's cool. But Peter in Office Space stops giving so much of a shit about what he's supposed to do that his life just becomes awesome until it goes too far, as you mentioned, and then he has to reel it back in for this ultimate, the end result of his full character arc. And I think the same thing kind of happens in Fight Club. If you stop giving a shit about all the stuff you're supposed to care about, look at this fulfilling life you can have.
Look at the meaning that you can discover.
Until it goes too far and you just formed a terrorist group, which is essentially the same thing.
Whoopsie daisy.
As Office Space.
Yeah, and there's a lot of interesting parallels between Office Space and Fight Club.
And then he kind of reels it in. It ends weirdly. Like, I feel like the Hollywood ending should be that they, stop it, and he, realizes...
What, Fight Club?
Yeah.
Yeah, instead he shoots himself in the fucking face!
And then doesn't immediately die, and then all the credit card companies still blow up, and they, watch it holding hands.
Yeah.
Which kind of paints this picture of, in my mind, this, chaotic good of, yeah, that was bad, but the good thing still kind of happened.
Chaotic good. The whole D&D alignment is so reductive as to be useless outside of the context of a D&D game and funny memes.
No.
No. But the memes.
But the memes. So, but I don't think that...
What is good? What is bad? Right? What is good? What is evil? You have to answer those questions if you're going to use a system like the chaotic good through chaotic evil, through order, lawful good, whatever.
But here's the thing, though, is those terms may have come from D&D, but they didn't invent those archetypes. Those are old. They actually, I think I read on some stupid internet meme that probably wasn't even true, but one of the the first people that created D&D, they based some of the character archetypes off of the Golden Girls because they thought that was the perfect group team of people. I don't fucking know anything about Golden Girls or D&D.
Sure, right. Well, these funny little parallels do pop up.
Yeah,
that does happen. But I think that trying to use the character alignment system outside of the context in which it was designed leads to a lot of bad systematization of fiction and just trying to take all of this wide variety of stories. And this is coming from someone that just went through the fucking Dan Harmon 8-step plot arc. But that's different. That's mythological.
So what's the difference between using D&D character archetypes versus the hero's journey?
Because the character archetypes are static and the hero's journey is a dynamic. It's a series of events. Whereas the character alignment, I'm not going to call them archetypes, because archetype is a different thing. There are 5 archetypes for men, and I think 4 or 6 for women, some number. Those are the alignment system is an attempt to systematize character. It's a post hoc. It's applied over the top of character. Whereas the substructure of the hero's journey, the Campbellian hero's journey, is discovered. We discovered that from studying many, many stories.
I mean, I can see that, but I think that the character archetypes, you don't have to be a true hardline whatever you are. I think the character archetypes are a spectrum of character archetypes that cover all. So
there are 9 of them.
You can exemplify different traits from different ones, but they all fit on that spectrum. There's not much room else on the spectrum for other things.
I find it kind of limiting. Yeah. I find the whole alignment system kind of limiting.
Yeah.
And I'm not much of a tabletop
me neither.
D&D kind of guy.
There's probably some real tabletop guys giving us a real hard time right
I'm
now.
sure there are. I'm sure
You
there
guys
are.
don't even get it.
Exactly.
Invite me to your D&D games then, because I want to play, and I don't have a lot of friends, so let alone 4 of them that can get together on the same night. 5, because I think you need like a DM and then 4 people, right? I don't
You
fucking
don't
know.
need 4 people. You can do it with 2.
You can just tell yourself stories. It's called imagination,
You can
Curt.
just write a book.
And just roll dice for fun. That's the fun
You
part.
can't actually roll dice to like determine what's going to happen next in the story. It's kind of a fun little writing exercise. Anyway, what were we talking about before this? We were talking about the ending of Fight Club.
Right.
Where you discover, of course, that for anyone who doesn't know, spoiler alert,
Spoilers!
you discover that Tyler Durden, the main character, narrator's best friend, has actually been one and the same with the main character the whole time. They've been one person. When they fought, the narrator was beating himself up.
Yep.
Yeah, they've done everything on their own. When Tyler Durden was having sex with Marla, that was the narrator, which is why she's been so off-put by the narrator's like weirdness all through the movie. Which I love their dinner at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was okay.
It's a very good and very important movie, and I think I've done it. I feel okay about the job I've done articulating why I think it's an important movie.
I think you have as well, and I don't attribute the same. That's like way too long to pause to not be able to say what I want to say.
It's okay. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I see why you like it. I just don't. I don't find the same meaning in it, so I don't find the same enjoyment out of the film.
Where do you think I've gone wrong?
No, you haven't gone wrong. That's exactly with like the Bruce Willis thing, and that may have been in the pre-show, but you cannot wrongly find meaning in a film. That's up to you.
You just didn't find any meaning.
I just didn't find any meaning.
What did you think about while watching Fight Club? What did it make you think of?
Oh, so I mean, I feel like it consistently makes me think of the type of person. I don't want to go into like spiral into circles, but when I watch Fight Club, it has some great dialogue. Like I can talk about it, what I enjoy about it as a film, but like as personally, like what I take from it, I take away that stereotype of like the good old boy. That's what I feel like when I watch it. Like you're solid,
like Bo and Luke Duke.
No, just like you're good white guy. You're unassuming white guy, but you know if you just.
Where are you getting that from this movie? Because they don't. Like I said, I think I've come up with some good counterexamples where Tyler Durden, who would be the ideal of that, right? He's meant to be the ideal man in this film. And I think they do a good job of portraying him that way. But he also undercuts that masculinity he allows himself to get beat up when the bar owner comes in.
Yeah.
And then he begs him, right? He begs him on his knees, please, let us stay here, I'll do anything. He begs him, and the order to go out and get into a fight with someone and then lose. And there's just something so complex about the idea of Fight Club, the ideals and philosophy of Fight Club itself as an object within the film.
I just think that all that stuff still comes from this place of having this understanding of the world that people just don't get, and if you could just let go of the shit you think is so important, you'd have this enlightened knowledge.
Why are you saying that in a mocking way?
That I do. Because that, I think, is a thing that many people feel like in that movie that would watch this movie and they agree with those statements, and it leads to those guys like the fucking Columbine kids that are just like, these fucking people don't get it, they're fucking scum, they're not valuable lives.
They're zombies, right?
They're zombies. And yeah. I think that, look at Edward Norton's character. He is a zombie until he gives up on that stupid shit that isn't really important. That's what I see from this movie, is just I think that's a very real type of person, the alt-righter. If you could just give up on all this stupid bullshit you've been spoon-fed, you'd be this enlightened person. But it's not an authentic, it's not real enlightenment.
It's a perversion of the idea of enlightenment.
Yes.
Often corralled around, as it shows, as depicted brilliantly and perfectly in Fight Club, corralled around a cult of personality, which is what it becomes. The Tyler Durden cult of personality is real both in the film and in the real world, which I find really creepy. But I think that's a really important point. Yeah, the thing that and I do think that it's important to watch the film from that point of view. The point of view of, this is all bullshit, you know, don't live by society's rules. It's like, those are also Christian ideals. The Christian ideal of counterculture. The idea that if the world is going one direction, then you as a Christian must go the other direction. Because the world is a sinful and fallen place. And you are in communication, you are in communion with the living God.
I can't get behind that.
Why not?
Because I think
you don't believe in God.
I think a
so.
part of the American Christian narrative is this like persecution fetish that they just like latch onto. That I think it's this. Oh God, we shouldn't do Godcast today. I think that there's this perverse reading of Christianity in America that says that I want to, like, my Lord and Savior stood up for what he believed in when everybody told him he was wrong, and he died over it, and he was right. He was right, and they killed the Messiah, because even though he was right to think what he said. I'm totally fucking going off the rails here. And I think that because of that thought of standing up for what you believe in and being willing to like die over what you know is the right thing in the Word of God leads to all this weird stuff that, like, as soon as you say happy holidays, it's like a war on Christmas. And anytime, I think that Christianity is like the predominant religion in America, but it still has this like minority, like people in America perverse this into this like, they still feel like the attacked minority. Everything is an attack on Christianity and on Christmas, and I hate that. I feel like for a lot of people, their relationship with God only exists because they have this desire to be persecuted like Christ. Because that character, I shouldn't say character because I don't want it to imply that it's fictional, that person or that idea is so strong to them, they have to be like that too. And I think that it leads to I don't think it's a good thing for a lot of Christians in America.
I think a lot of Christians in America need to get through their hypocrisy before they become proud of their faith. I think that most people probably should not be proud of their faith, because it's an ongoing project. And I do think that that's a message that people should kind of carry with them and feel convicted by. You know, the idea that if you feel proud of your faith, then there's probably something wrong. Because your faith is imperfect, necessarily, as you are imperfect. Do you think that people should stand up for what they believe in?
Yeah.
And do you think that a person should be willing to die, if it came down to it, for what they know is true?
I mean, I guess.
It's a strong stand you're taking there. Yeah.
Like, I can't give a strong answer to that, because I do have this dissonant opinion of like, no,
you're a nihilist.
Human life does not matter.
Yeah.
It just happens to be.
Human life does not matter.
At the same time, man, if I see a person that is hurt, I empathize for them, and I don't want them to hurt. But I feel like that's a stance I've attributed to humanity. I don't think that's like an inherent belonged thing.
You don't think human life has inherent value?
No. I think we've attributed value to it.
Yeah.
And I too have attributed value to it. Mm-hmm. But it was a value that I gave to it, not one that already existed.
So you think that a society that doesn't attribute to human life any value is as good as a society that does?
I mean, as they are as a society, as the other society. I hate using good. I don't like using...
Do you believe that there is such a thing as good and evil?
Not really.
All right.
Like,
well,
like...
That's a whole other issue.
But I can't say... But I fully agree that I'm like a hypocrite. Like, I do feel like on a completely, like, in a vacuum, I feel like all those things are true. But I do think, at the same time, there are acts that are evil. So I know that those contradict each other. And I'm not enough of a philosopher to know how to, like... I wish I could fucking...
You don't need to be a philosopher to have... that's part of the weird specialization that happens... or that has happened in the last couple hundred years. You don't need to be a philosopher to feel like you have a good handle on whether or not an act is good or evil.
Sure.
You just need to be a human being.
But, I agree. So, but, like, on one hand, if a person is hurting another person, that feels evil to me. But, when I look at it from how I perceive humanity, if the person doing the bad thing and the person having the bad thing done to them both have no value, what's the difference?
Then how can you say that they have no value? Which do you feel more strongly?
Because I've given them value. But I don't think that they have...
You believe that they have value because you've given them value.
Yeah.
Oh, that's perverse. Disgusting. I think that Fight Club is a pretty moralistic movie. And maybe... as a person who doesn't believe in good or evil, that's why it falls a little flat for you.
That very well could be why.
Do you want to do Dreamcast?
Nope.
I
think Dreamcast is over for me. I think I flew too close to the sun, Ben.
Curtis, don't let him scare you.
I don't know.
Seriously,
I was shook.
Do you remember the advice that I gave you last week? For listeners of the show, last week I suggested that Curtis's weird dream that he had was demonic visitation.
Mm-hmm.
Then after we stopped recording, hopefully that this came across this way, I was trying to walk back what I said. Because I realized, thinking about it farther, that when I say demonic visitation, I talked more about this with Megan as well, and I feel very strongly that I should have been more clear. When I say demonic visitation, I don't necessarily mean what a layperson would assume I would mean. I mean something specific that I've thought about for hours to come up with a definition of, right? So I tried to give you maybe a more concrete and less frightening task, which was to simply... when you have a voice in your head saying that you should not do something, that you not do that thing. That you be truthful with yourself about what you're feeling. Because that is a very disturbing dream that you had. And it's a very disturbing follow-up dream that you told me about in the pre-show. But that doesn't mean that you should back away. Do you think that there is a force out there that is going to hurt you or someone that you love?
I don't know. And that's why I felt fear because of that. And as I actually forgot to like mention the other, but not that it matters much, but since my follow-up dream, I haven't had a dream. That was the night of that podcast, so it was 1 week ago. I have not had one dream since They
scared you off.
They scared me off. For the listeners, I'll just, whatever. So what if I go crazy or die or something? I had a similar dream the night that I told Ben about my dream from last week, where I was just suddenly aware of the fact that I was dreaming, and it was just a snapshot of a dream where I was being bombarded with not literal images, but like feelings of loved ones and people I care about, and that something bad would happen to them. And my response to this in my dream was a direct response to the dream that I had previously had, in which I tried to bargain with whatever I was talking to and said, I didn't fucking mean to do this. I will not press this. I did not mean to see what I saw in my previous dream. And I'm sorry, and just we are cool, and that's it. I apologize. please don't hurt anyone that I care about. That is it. And that's a very real dream that I had. I feel weird like saying that because it feels like melodramatic and kind of made up, but I assure everyone, and those are two very real dreams I had, and I was shooketh, as they say on the vines.
Thou art shooketh. Why art thou mad? Okay, let me give you... I am a man in two countries these days, all right? As a convert from atheist to the Christian way, right? The way, as they call it in the Book of Acts, which I love, right? It makes it feel... It brings you back to that time period, right? Yeah. It wasn't Christianity until someone called it Christianity. It was just the way. Let me give you my secular take first, all right? My secular amateur psychologist take. When you start to approach something that is important for you to discover, that you haven't discovered yet, you're going to get scared. Reasonably, right? Because there's a principle, Carl Jung had some Latin name for it, but the basic idea is that in filth it will be found. The thing that you most need will be found in the place where you least want to look. And the guy whose videos I watch, who kind of pointed that out to me, followed that up with an anecdote from Arthurian legend, where when the Knights of the Round Table wanted to find the Holy Grail, you have a group of men on a quest to find the most precious thing. How did they begin that quest? They began the quest by looking at the woods, and each of them went to the part of the woods that looked darkest to him. The thing you most want, the thing you most need, not want, the thing you most need will be found in the place you least want to look. So when you feel that fear, you're going to want to look away, and there's a primal urge to look away. But it's all you. It's all in your head from a secular point of view. It's all in your head. So what do you really have to fear?
Are you asking me?
I'm asking you.
I can't say that I fully... This is not a strong belief that I have or even believe at all. It's just something I've been toying with. Similar to the old Carl Sagan Cosmos videos showing if you are a being that can only experience 2 dimensions, a sphere will not look to you like it does to us who can experience...
You'll see it in slices.
...experience 3 dimensions. I fully believe that there is a possibility that there are dimensions that we... I'm not like saying like parallel spooky dimensions necessarily. I think that there are dimensions that we do not see or that we are incapable of comprehending, in the same way that if you saw a 2-dimensional sphere, it would just look like a circle. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's a possibility that I think you can potentially, through meditation or dreaming or constant thought or making a deal with the devil, you can see things, you could possibly see things you're not supposed to see. Or in a less...
Supposed by who?
Or supposed by the limits in which your brain can comprehend. That should be maybe a better way to phrase it than you're naughty, you're not allowed to see this. More of a, you can't see this because you can't see it for what it is and you won't understand. And I think you can peek behind the curtain too much. And I think that sometimes if you peek behind the curtain, there's no coming back.
Mm-hmm. So that's an essentially Lovecraftian perspective, that proposition, right? The proposition that you are a meat puppet who means nothing, living in a universe beyond your capacity to understand, hounded by gods and beings who are greater than you, and whose lives actually do have meaning.
Maybe. Maybe.
Who knows? Who knows what the fifth dimensional beings have?
So, I think when you talk about how many, I don't know. I don't know enough about
it's a pretty
sound.
internally consistently nihilistic worldview. So that is you're succeeding on that front, at least.
you're in tune with everything you said previously.
You are not contradicting yourself
You're not throwing a
in any
curveball.
way. This all makes perfect sense.
So, I enjoy... I mean, I grew up, as soon as I could read books of this level. I mean, I liked reading H.G. Wells stories. I liked The Time Machine. I was interested in learning, Quantum Leap and all that dumb shit.
The Time Machine, Quantum Leap,
yeah,
The Time Machine.
Quantum Leap, The Time Machine. Things that challenge the fact that there are 3 dimensions. That there are only 3 dimensions.
That is not a fact. It is, in fact, a fact that there are more than 3 dimensions.
I can express 5.
Really?
Yeah.
What are the 5 dimensions?
So it's 4 dimensions and a 0 dimension. This is not something I made up. This is something that was explained to me.
By who?
One of my professors in college, a math professor.
Okay.
So a point on a graph is a 0 dimension. It's there. It's a point that you can point to, but it has no length, it has no width, but it still exists.
Right.
So it's an object, it's a point with 0 dimensions.
Then a line, then a square, then a cube.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think there's argument
then a hypercube.
That time is a 4th dimension.
And then I believe there's also a 4th spatial dimension.
Like a space-time?
That's a different thing.
Okay. I don't know. I'm not much of a philosopher or science guy.
Or a mathematician.
Or a mathematician.
Or a logician.
Yeah. So, I find that is something to think about, is that until I thought there were 3 dimensions, and then that professor explained 2 more dimensions to me in a way that I had not thought about them. And I think that if that random guy can explain 2 to me that easily... then there have to be more.
Do you remember which math professor it was?
No, I don't. I can't remember his name.
We had some pretty brilliant people on the faculty at our college.
We did. And was his name Dan? He was one of those weird professors that
He was like an associate professor.
That just let you call him by his first name or whatever.
Yeah. Yes, I remember who you're talking about.
He had red hair.
We don't need to name him on this podcast.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, I remember who you're talking about.
Sorry.
I saw you Googling it.
Just for my own self. I wasn't
Friend of the show.
Friend of the show, UMF professor.
Yeah, I remember who you're talking about. In fact, I remember his name. I could tell it to you right now.
After the show.
Yeah.
So I think that's a very real thing. You think
that there are beings living in a higher dimension of existence who have ill intention towards you?
No, not necessarily. I think that they could very well be as unaware of us as we are to 2-dimensional beings.
Again, a very Lovecraftian idea.
I've never read really any Lovecraft.
As far as I'm not actually sure what the stance on this is, but I've never heard anyone say that there are 2-dimensional beings.
And I don't know if me neither. I don't know anything, but so I think. Not that anything bad would happen to me from them finding out that I know about them. More in the fact that my brain, as it is, can't handle that. It can't comprehend, and it would do damage to see too much.
Yeah, that's a very Lovecraftian idea.
To push my own brain beyond the limits of what it's.
Do you feel like you're pushing your brain up to limits right now?
I feel like
people engage with and study their dreams through their whole lifetimes at times, developing that relationship and developing that sense of vision. And where it gets scary is when you start to border on things that are going to make it difficult for you to continue to live your life in the way that you've been living it. Because your brain does not want to change your model for the world. It will do, in fact, anything to stop you from doing that. Because if it's not absolutely necessary, your brain does not want to update those schema. But sometimes it is necessary to update the schema.
That's true. But in my recent dream, the first one that I had, I have never felt that fear of. I've had many bad dreams before. I've confronted things kind of in dreams before. I've revisited places in dreams. I've never had that feeling of not supposed to know about. You are in a place you do not belong. You are in a place that you should not even know about, and you have really fucked up by coming here. And
it could just be that it's a part of your brain that you haven't been to in a long time.
It could be.
Yeah. But
what's worse? Going insane or just not confronting?
Are you doing like a Lovecraftian Pascal's Wager right now?
like I don't know. What's worse, you know? Like, should I just acknowledge that there's a curtain and just not look?
You should look behind the curtain.
So, but like, what if looking behind the curtain unravels something?
It won't.
How can we know that?
I can know that as a Christian. All right.
I don't know, man.
I can. This would all be a lot easier if you'd just buy into my worldview, Curtis.
Yeah, that's true.
Said the spider to the fly. This is not.
We're supposed to be partying like it's 1999. This is not.
This is part of it. This is part of it. This is part of it. We're supposed to follow where these movies lead us. I think that. Have you ever done structured dream investigation before in the way that you have been doing it recently?
I don't think so, but I'm not entirely sure what that means, so...
We've been doing Dreamcast.
Yes.
Which has been a structured way of picking out a dream, roughly each week, if you've had dreams, and saying, I wonder what this was about, right? And reflecting on it. Have you ever done something like that before?
Probably not. Not in this. I've never sat with somebody and had another interpretation.
Yeah. So you've never investigated your dreams in such a conscious and public way.
Sure. Especially not in front of you fucking people.
Right. Especially not in front of potentially the entire internet.
Yeah.
So what your brain might have been telling you is to stop doing that, because if you continue doing that, you're going to have to rebuild parts of your mind. The reason you would have to rebuild parts of your mind is because they're being shown to not be sufficient to face the task of continuing to live in the world as it is. And your brain doesn't want to do that update because it's hard work. Your brain wants to figure out any reason not to do its homework. But, as we'll talk about with the Matrix, is it better to live the easy and convenient life? Or is it better to live the difficult but ultimately true life?
I'm pretty sure I would blue pill my way out of that.
You'd be Cypher. You'd be just like electric gunning people.
I wouldn't want to be made aware of the fact that I was living in a simulation.
Which
as we move forward, seems like progressively more potential.
Oh, really? I've definitely heard that theory. I think that I would be very disappointed if you stopped investigating dreams with me.
There's a lot at risk, Ben.
What? What do you have to lose?
My sanity?
I haven't seen a credible threat to your sanity. Okay. I see that you're scared. And I understand why you're scared. Because dreams are scary. They are just dreams. They are just dreams. You're actually probably more likely to go insane if you continue trying to use an outdated model on a current world.
I'm gonna crash.
You're gonna crash.
My simulations.
If you're not getting updated for Y2K, you're gonna crash. Your whole banking system is gonna come down.
What a great way to bring this back around to 1999. That was podcasting at its finest.
Absolutely. I'm a pro.
This is why I get serious with you. That was good.
Well, that's a good thing about this series is that we're talking about one subject ultimately. If we are having honest conversation, then we are talking about one subject, and I think that applies to most of our podcasts as well. And I do think that we've had an honest conversation in this episode, and it has brought us back around to Y2K and back to 1999.
So we've talked about the parallels between these two and or three films.
Yeah, okay, whatever.
So, I think where we are at is good for this week.
Me too.
I think we have 2 more weeks of movies from 1999 that I think express a struggle of people from 1999. So I think we should wrap it up at that. Next week we're going to continue to party like it's 1999.
Let's rate Fight Club real quick.
Oh, we gotta rate Fight Club.
And we gotta rate Fight Club, and we gotta rate the last year's thing.
Okay.
All right.
Fight Club. What do I rate out of 10?
Whatever you want.
5.
I do 4 stars.
I like 10.
All right.
5. Just
Solid 5.
Dead in the middle. It was okay.
I give it a 3, but with the caveat that it's an incredibly important movie.
Okay.
And that understanding Fight Club brings you closer to understanding the modern world.
Okay. So unfortunately, it does not make the tight shit list. 1 year ago, Ben and I reviewed. Hate when it takes. I almost brought it up, but then I didn't want to risk seeing it. So.
Seeing the
I wanted a hot take
while you're
on
pulling
it.
it up. While you're pulling it up, let me tell you about my dream this week.
Tell me.
I had a work stress dream, but inside of the work stress dream, I watched an amazing animated movie about a buffalo with the body of a man who was raising a son and doing a great job.
A buffalo head with the body of a man?
He had the body of a man. He had the head of a buffalo and an anthropomorphized buffalo body.
Okay.
So it was like a cartoon buffalo who walked around on 2 feet and had arms.
That makes me... Isn't that like a Japanese movie? Like Gozu or Gozer or something?
Gozer is from Ghostbusters, I believe, isn't he?
I
don't look that up. But yeah, that was my dream, and it was actually lovely. I enjoyed that dream very much, and I woke up feeling good about the dream and about my life.
That is good.
Yeah, you should keep investigating your dreams, Curtis.
Well, we'll see.
You're leery. You're leery, but don't shut yourself off to this. People have been dreaming for thousands, if not millions of years, right? Animals have had dreams even before there were people.
I like to watch my dog dream.
Yeah, it's cute.
It's fun. Okay, yeah, it's Gozu, and there's like a man with a cow head or something.
You don't have to look it up, Curtis.
Oh, I thought you told me not to look up. I thought you told me not to look up the Ghostbusters thing.
Oh,
sorry, misunderstanding.
That's okay. Do we have the Ben and Curt? Uh-oh.
August 28th, 2017. Fallout New Vegas.
It's already on the tight shit list.
Already on the tight shit list.
Yeah.
And thankfully so, because I feel like my conversations about my constant Fallout New Vegas playing, you might not put it on the tight shit list anymore. Because of
your unhealthy obsession with Fallout New Vegas does nothing to reduce Fallout New Vegas from being a 4-star game.
Maybe this isn't the best time to share it, but you asked me a while ago if I still have new experiences playing New Vegas, and I did have a very good one.
Yeah, close the show with it.
Okay, so as you know, Ben, I'm speaking to. I'm sure most of you have a pretty intimate knowledge of it by now, even if you haven't played it, because I didn't talk about it. I always talk about it. There are different factions in Fallout New Vegas, and you kind of have to pick what you think will be the best outcome.
Right. Or like what your character would do.
Yeah, where your character
if you're a role player
would find the best outcome for the people of New Vegas. And how the game progresses is as you follow a path with whichever faction you like, the other ones start to feel negative towards you, and then hateful, and then they will...
Because they're all in competition to run the Mojave.
And they will begin to kill you on sight. So in this playthrough, I'm trying to go for the most complete playthrough that I possibly could. So with my extensive knowledge of the game, any quests that I receive, I wait. And I do... Anytime I have a quest that would involve doing something negative towards a faction, I wait to do that. So I had never done this, so it felt much like a poker game where, which is very in line with what's going on in New Vegas.
It's on brand.
Where I just got to this point where I was kind of liked or at least neutral towards every party until I did every quest that I could do before I had to make a stance, in which case, fuck the Legion. That's like the first one that has to get...
Yep.
So, the idea of playing this game that takes place in, this bombed out New Vegas, I played it as though I were playing a card game and I were bluffing. And when I finally showed my hand, it allowed me to like drop a hammer on New Vegas in a way that I had never done while playing this game. Mm-hmm. And I found it just while playing and enjoying and thinking about the game, thinking, how much would it fucking suck if all of a sudden your forces across this Mojave were just obliterated because you had no clue.
You're essentially a double agent.
Yeah.
You're a double, however many factions there are, you're a quadruple, quintuple agent or something.
And I had never done that before, and that was super fun to me. So, New Vegas is still on the tight shit list, thankfully.
Yep.
And is that it for this week?
That's it. What are we watching next week?
We are going to watch the Mark Night Shyamalan film, The Sixth Sense, starring Bruce Willis and Haley Joel Osment.
Yep.
And probably some other people.
Probably. It's going to be good.
It's going to be good. Before watching it, it feels kind of like the sore thumb of the party, like it's 1999
I'm very excited to see how that opinion changes.
So we'll see if
because I wouldn't have seen all the parallels between Office Space and Fight Club beforehand. For instance, all right.
Please tell me
the inciting action of both films is that someone becomes trapped in his subconscious mind.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Peter in Office Space gets hypnotized and then does not come out of it, and the narrator in Fight Club becomes an insomniac and is unable to leave his. He's as unable to enter his subconscious mind as he is to leave it, and he becomes utterly dominated by it.
I wonder if we care. I don't think we will do this, but I wonder if anyone ever has, or if we could, if we wanted to. I wonder if how much Office Space and Fight Club follow each other beat to beat. I wonder if they have the same beats as. I mean, I'm sure time-wise they wouldn't. It's not going to like Dark Side of the Moon, Wizard of Oz it.
Well, but you can identify those beats though. Like I wonder how close in proportion to the full running time he meets Tyler Durden as Peter gets hypnotized.
Yep.
And then at the end, well, how do they begin and how do they end? At the beginning, after the kind of in medias res stuff, you start with the narrator talking about his awful life. And you start with Peter in Office Space in traffic, right?
You see his awful life.
You see his awful life. And then at the end, the building burns to the ground and the buildings fall to the ground.
Holy shit, Ben.
Yeah.
We got an essay to write, buddy.
Office Space then has the tag where Peter is happily working on a job site.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, anyway.
You'd have to prescribe to my chaotic good to believe, to draw the... We're going to work on an essay.
No, I'm not going to... If the essay involves this, like, alignment, this D&D alignment...
It doesn't have to.
I know.
We can see where it goes.
Hard time.
This will be our doctorate. This will be our thesis.
Yeah, yes. Finally, I'll be able to get my doctorate in film. Yep. Film talk.
So, hopefully, The Sixth Sense plays into...
I think it will.
Our themes of 1999. And that'll... Yes. I'm really hoping that by the time we've finished these next two films... we have this profound idea of what it meant to be in 1999.
Well, and we're ready to watch The Matrix.
And we come out of it. I hope that this maybe pulls me out of the weirdness that David Lynch put me into. Maybe it'll help me come full circle.
You've been in the unconscious mind this whole time, and this is finally going to let you emerge.
It'll help me confront the unconscious mind, which will push us. We're confronting the ghosts and the Matrix. Yep. Wow, this is gonna be fucked up.
Now, ghosts are an important representation of the unconscious mind.
They are.
Ghosts are the unconscious mind asserting itself in the world. Tyler Durden is kind of a ghost.
Mm-hmm. Man,
so the narrator's realization that he was Tyler Durden the whole time is analogous to Bruce Willis's realization that he was a ghost the whole time. Yep. It's a perfect series. This is gonna be
rule, Ben. How are we so good at this?
How are we so obscure is the question that I'm wondering.
Someday,
you fuckers are getting this for free.
After we've fucking given up on this podcast, someone's gonna find it, and we're just gonna. It's gonna
be like holy shit. Yeah,
it's gonna be the best thing.
It might be decades from now.
It could be.
But...
It could be when we're in season fucking 10 of Jen and Bert Till It Hurts.
Yep.
That people realize the creative genius. It's gonna be the fucking Moby Dick of podcasts.
Yes.
Like 80 years after we fucking die,
people are gonna say,
like, "Holy shit, this is a good podcast."
These guys really touched on something.
So next week we'll be talking about The Sixth Sense. We hope you guys are watching the movies with us, so you have a fucking clue what we're talking about. Otherwise, we probably just sound like assholes.
Yeah.
Continue to listen to Ben and Curt Till It Hurts by subscribing to Black Gold Podcast on iTunes and Stitcher. You can listen to that there and Black Gold Podcast. You can also listen to all of our shows on by streaming them from YouTube. You can follow Ben and Curt Till It Hurts on Twitter at Ben_and_Curt. I'm fucking this up tonight.
Don't put a question mark at the end, but yeah, you got it.
Yeah, there's no question mark. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at KurtCake5K. Please check out the live show. We love doing it live.
It's a lot of fun.
Wednesdays at, I don't know, what, between like
5-ish,
between 4:30
6.
between 4:30 and 7:30.
Yeah.
Just hang by your laptop and, you know, just keep the stream open.
Don't touch that dial.
Yep. We'll be back next time. So thanks for listening again.
Yeah, thanks. Bye. But you know what? I think doing a discussion before the show paid dividends.
I think so too.
I feel really good about that.
I think we should move forward with that being the. These are big boys.
Oh, the big ones. The big ones. Alright, you got the stream stopped?
Nope. Not much of a post show.
The post show is we both have to pee really bad.
I gotta save this before we
fuck with anything.
Before we shut anything off.
Yeah. Fallout 4 Goaty. What does that mean?
Game of the year.
No, I know.
Oh, okay. Really? So yeah, it went on sale at Target, so I snagged it, and my original plan was to play a game or two after New Vegas to get me away from the Fallout.
Yeah.